Hello and welcome to Eramis Soccer as we follow England through the Euros. We're up to reviewing Game 2 and previewing Game 3, and we are joined by England national team fullback and Newcastle United Champions League player, Mr. Warren Barton. Warren, thanks for joining us.
Absolute pleasure, my friend. No problem. Anytime.
Good. So I know you're on a time schedule, so we'll get into this game because I've got the notes of the game and I'm interested in a few... your take on a few different things from the game. First of all, the unchanged lineup. I was surprised. You know, we heard all week after game one about Foden coming central, right-footed left-back, Trent struggles. I don't know what changes I was expecting, but I was expecting a couple, to be honest with you. I was surprised with that unchanged lineup rolled out. What were your thoughts on that when you saw it pre-game?
Yeah, I felt the same. I actually covered the Denmark game in their first game, and they wasn't too convincing when they played. But you know, when they play England, they're going to lift their game. And I just think also, Stu, keeping two things as a coach, I think you have to look at is keeping everybody fresh for players, that have played coming off the back of a long season. And we always go into major tournaments. It was different in Qatar, obviously, because that was halfway through our season. But it was like keeping everybody fresh going forward. I think also, I've been in that position, if you're one of the fringe players and you feel like you're never going to get a game, that's a little bit demoralising. And then the last thing would be, if you are expecting to come in, which there is going to be some changes you would think going forward in the last game, is you haven't really kicked a ball in anger for about 3 or 4 weeks. So, Gareth has come under a lot of pressure. Some of it warrants, some of it a little bit over the top, but that's when you're a head coach of a national team that has a high expectation. So, yeah, Stu, I was surprised that it was only one change and maybe at halftime with Gallagher, but no changes from the kickoff, because I just think it's, for morale in the camp, it's good. It keeps everybody together. It keeps the lads on their toes. And, you've coached. If you pull someone like Trent Alexander to the side and say, look, I just want to freshen it up. I feel like you've been doing well. He may not like it, but at least he's heard for it. Now, when the changes do come, it looks like the coach is now under pressure from the outside, and that again sends a negative response going forward. But with Denmark and how they play, and knowing how organised, disciplined, and their shape, and they're very experienced, I just thought to give them a problem would have been to have a little bit of pace in the wide areas, and we didn't do that. We didn't do that. We played into what they like, and it was a real drab game, and they was the one dominating, and we couldn't get hold of the ball, which is it's Denmark. It's not a team that's Spain that's going to keep the ball, or Portugal. It's a team that Denmark, who are very much like us, a team that likes to transition and play a little bit on the break. So it was a bit of a concern, to say the least, Stu.
Well, first of all, that's great insight, because what I think people don't realize is if you make one change mentally within your locker room, you've actually perked up 3 or 4 players. Like, the lineup changes, the 11 changes. I've got a chance here. I think a perceived locked lineup is a very dangerous thing. The Denmark team, I'd like your take on something, because it's a very familiar team, right? I feel like I'm watching not England, but there's so many Premier League players. It's a very familiar team. Christensen, Anderson, Eriksson, Højbjerg, Højlund. These are guys that English fans know inside out. And it's also a rematch of the semi-final of the last Euros, which went to extra time. So I guess a question I have is, if this is a semi-final rematch that goes to extra time and it's a draw, is it an overreaction one to the result?
No, because I think we've progressed. I think they've got older. They've changed their front line with players. Højlund, the Manchester United player, but he's not the finished article. He's still got a long way to go. He scored, I think it was 17 goals for Manchester United. So, yeah. But he had a difficult season. So I don't see them improving, but I see Jude Bellingham improving from the last time we played. I see that's Foden is a changed player going forward. Maybe obviously then say, well, Harry Kane's got older, but I think Gay come in at the back, the Crystal Palace player. I think he's the one at the moment. He's the silver lining, because there was a little bit of unsure about if, obviously Maguire's not gone, and no disrespect to Harry Maguire or Calvin Phillips, but if we're banking on them 2 players to take us all the way, I think we're a little bit short going forward to win a tournament with them players. Harry's been excellent, obviously, and big character, big personality, and Wayne Rooney made a really good point, Stu, and I know you're big into this. Jordan Henderson maybe wouldn't have started, but he would have been able to be in that group of players to keep them monitored, give them a voice, talk to them. We are a very quiet team. Pickford, you can see in the game, he's the only one that really shouts. Cole Walker, vast experience. Trippier, I know Kieran, he's not 50 caps, but he doesn't really talk a lot. He leads by example. Stones is another one, leads by example. Rice just leads by example. He's only a young player. Kane leads by example. He says a few words, but not really going to rally the troops. So they haven't really got a vocal voice in that group. And again, a lot of new players going to a tournament. But we've got players that should be playing at a higher level. I mean, I don't know about you in that Denmark game, but we looked after 60 minutes that we didn't have a run in us.
You've read me like a book because I was big on Henderson's personality and impact.
Yeah.
But honestly, Warren, if he was there now, I think he would start the third game. I really do.
Yeah, I think also, just his presence around, he would have known how to handle the media. You don't have to throw Walton, a young boy that's only played 16 Premier League games, into a press conference that the British media or the world media really are going to go off, going to ask him some tricky questions. So you can throw your big guns out there to answer that. And even if he's not playing, Jordan will say the right things going forward. And just on the training ground, and Thomas Muller is doing it for Germany. The chances of him playing is not going to be a lot, but in the big moments he's going to be around, and he'll have a
great comparison.
Yeah, he'll have a big say in what's going on. So we always have our own opinion. We always want England to do the best, but we've left ourselves a little bit wide open for criticism because of simple things that could have been rectified before.
Yeah, like when you were at Euro 96, Warren, and like maybe I'm just projecting, but I always thought David Batty, David Platt, they actually weren't starters from what I remember, but they did seem like big presences within the squad and really good experienced heads to get through the tournament. Is that how it played out, even without them being stars on the field?
Well, we had people like Gazza, Tony Adams, Stuart Pearce, so we wasn't lacking of people with leadership quality.
He's the one who needs the leader, mate.
Yeah. So he was looking after people like Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman, who was running around the hotel half the time. But yes, you're right. We did have them characters, and people point to another one that was there. So that generation had a lot of personality and a lot of spirit. So it wasn't and you had a leader like Terry Venables, who was a phenomenal coach, but also he was very similar to Sir Bobby Robson, great with the media. We didn't start well against Switzerland. Alan hadn't scored a goal. There was a lot of pressure, and Terry had pulled Alan aside and said, "You're gonna play every game. So make sure you put the ball in the back of the net." And the rest is history. Got the golden boot, and we got to the semi-finals. And that's the type of man management. But the generation has changed. Younger players are different, are quiet, and Stu, I've got 3 kids, and they're all different in their own way. But this, as I said, these type of things could have been rectified, because it's not, even when I was at Newcastle, I wasn't maybe, the best player in the world, but I was good around the place. I was making sure that young players coming in, Roberto Solano, when he come over to Peru, that he felt welcome. I didn't speak a word of Spanish. He didn't speak a word of English, but I got him coming out with the boys, making sure his wife was okay, making sure that he knew how to get back to the hotel, who was picking him up the next day. They're important things. And when you're locked in a camp for 3 or 4 weeks, you've got to have people around that can keep an eye on the little group in the corner that have maybe not said anything for a couple of days. So it's a big part of making everybody feel welcome.
So as you, with regards to your playing games as a right back, you said you weren't the best in the world. I disagree, but that's fine. We're allowed to have different opinions. You were a top end right back, and what's fascinating me is in 2018 we were starting to have the conversations about Kyle Walker aging out the team. And we're here 6 years on, and we've had Trent, and we've had Reece James, and we've had Ben White, and we've had Kieran Trippier, and we've had whoever else. We've talked about England having 6 right backs. It's not actually changed for all the talk. It's still Kyle Walker. Why is he so good? What is it that makes him that good?
I think it's the modern game. I think also with Pep, he's learned. And I remember going back to Arsene Wenger and speaking to the Arsenal boys when they was coming to the end of their times with people like Nigel Winterburn, Lee Dixon, Tony Adams, and Martin Keown, that famous back line, and Sol Campbell. You can throw Sol in there, but Sol was a little bit younger. Is that he spoke to them about their diet, about looking after themselves after training, not just getting in the car and going home. Can you do this? Can you do that? And you know, Tony, we all know had a problem with alcohol and come through that. I did my pro license with him, and he was right in the middle of that when he was doing that in 2007, and had to be away from all that deterrent that was dragging him down. And you know, great for him that he got over that. But he made them realise that if you did X, Y, Z, it's going to prolong your career. And I think Carl Walker's in that same. If you do X, Y, Z, you know, you're going to be as good as you was maybe when you was 20. 26, 27, and I think he is. Carl Walker, he's a phenomenal athlete. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. He picks his times to go forward, and the same with them guys. They played another 5 years. You know, they went on. Lee Dixon in particular, and Nigel and Tony went on until their late 30s. Where really, when you looked at their body and what they was doing at 31, 32, you thought another couple of years of doing what you're doing, and you ain't going to last. They go on and win the double. So you know, it is that, and I think a lot of that is with Carl Walker that he's listened to people like Pep and, you know, have a good time by all means, but for another, you know, 99 days of the year, you make sure that you're ready and looking after yourself. And, you know, people have their different way of doing that. But, you know, there's no doubt that he's a supreme athlete, and he's obviously educated enough as a player when to make that run. Maybe when you're younger, you make run after run after run. He picks his moment like he did for like he did for Denmark with a goal. He just knew the kid was under pressure.
Warren.
Yeah, no, I do. I do. I think he looks composed on the ball. And again, I don't want to put right backs under a little bit of scrutiny, but if your right back's the best player, when you look at what we've got, the top six up front, you know what I mean? Then, you know, yes, have a good game, but he shouldn't be your best player for the last 2 or 3 games. But I'm sure we'll turn it around. But yeah, there's a lot to turn around.
I've got a question in regards to player ability, because I'm big on teams are so often more than the sum of their parts, right? And England go 1-0 up thanks to Walker. I honestly think that Danish number 17 didn't even see him if you watch the replay.
No.
Like Walker just
didn't have a clue
to create the goal. But 23 Hjulmand and 21 Hjulmand and 23 Højbjerg, they are not better players than the England midfield. But the combination of them playing the roles they played, which was to me a very basic 6-8, almost like an old school 4-4-2. Stay in a line, shield your centre-backs, get on the ball, move the ball around, shoot from distance consistently, which I think left a footprint on the game beyond the worldie of a goal. And Eriksen, who's a very, very natural 10. Eriksen's not a better player than Jude Bellingham right now for me, but Eriksen got in positions a 10 should get in, got on the ball, faced upfield and caused problems more than Bellingham did. There's a better balance in the Danish midfield, even though they're not quote unquote as good players. Would you agree with that?
You said the word balance. They had a better balance. We're trying to put, you know, round holes in square pegs. You know, it's not working. You know, you're trying to have the, and we played so slow. You know, and again, a lot of that was down to, you know, the fatigue. It looked like we were fatigued and we couldn't keep hold of the ball. And Harry Kane's so deep. Not once did we press high up the field. They just had a natural balance with their wing backs, making the field as big as possible, which was taking our wide players back. Then there was a massive hole in midfield for them to come and get it. Declan Rice was playing too deep as a number 6, kept getting the ball off of Stones, which he doesn't need to. John Stones, you've seen him play with Man City. He's been playing centre midfield for most of the time at Man City. He's quite capable of bringing the ball forward. We were just so off balance. And, you know, you've been involved in the game long enough, Stu. Once you lose that balance and that momentum, it was hard to get hold of. Like, we kept chasing and chasing and chasing, but we never got near anybody. Not one point, and we're talking going back to leaders, not one point did someone say, oh, just fucking stand still for a minute and we're going to close down together. No one did that. We kept asking Harry to keep plodding along, and no wonder he was tired because there was no direction. And that comes from...
I have a really interesting theory on this press that I want your thoughts on. If you just take away ability on the ball and you talk about pressing, I don't think Foden can do it. I don't think Kane can do it. I don't think Saka can do it. So I think if this
Well,
England team pressed with that personnel, who are the best players, I think it'd be a tremendously weak press and it would be played through at will.
Foden can press because he does it for City. They're a natural reaction to do it. And there's two ways of looking at pressing, Stu. There's that intensity of pressing straight away. You know, the Barcelona team that used to do it is you lose your ball, you get it back within 3 seconds. That was their DNA. Whoever it was, whether it was, you know, Dani Alves pushing up, whoever was up was closing down as quick as you can. That was their press. But you can pick your times to press and press them into an area. You know, like Harry Kane, if he gets it and pushes it over to Vestergaard, who, with all due respect, like you said, is not the quickest player and he's definitely not the best player on the ball.
Yeah.
Press him into an area and then make him go one way. That then is a trigger for my midfield players to squeeze in, and it's a knock-on effect. But because we wasn't pressing, and I agree with you, Stu, half of it, we can't press high intensity because it's not how you want Harry Kane to do that. But you can press them into an area, so you suffocate them, really. You move them around, and then you go in and close down and win it. But we never even did that. So that high-intensity press, like you said, and our best players, one of them's only the natural one to do it because City do that. You know, they do. They as soon as they turn the ball over, you win it. Bernardo Silva, Foden, all of them chase around and hustle and get it out. But it's more of a phonetic way of closing down.
Yeah.
I think England can do it, and it's not a high press, but it's a sophisticated press because you can push them into a certain area. I think, anyway.
I don't know if you saw it the way I did, but when he subbed the front three, which I actually liked, I thought they were pressing then. And Denmark finally got rattled and finally looked rushed.
Yeah.
And that's
but
a
that was high
fascinating
intensity
conundrum,
press.
isn't it?
And that's us as British fans because, you know, you've been in enough Premier League games. If someone's running and tackling, everybody, that's great, you know, but that's our mentality. If someone's doing it in a way like Spain have done it in their own way before they press, they win the ball back and then they go, there's different ways of doing it, you know. And again, the pace that come in, and that's why I'd love to see Gordon play because as a defender, the last thing I want is pace against me. You know, Foden, as good as he is, and I think he's a wonderful player, but I can sort of deal with him in certain areas. You know what I mean? He's not going to run away from me. He's not going to physically beat me. He's not going to beat me in the air. But yeah, he's a hell of a player with the ball to his feet. But if I get my distance right and talk to my midfield player, I've got half a chance of closing him down. So that's where, you know, someone comes in like Gordon that's going to run in behind.
Gordon playing that I want from you. So I always remember in '96, it would never be Shearer and Fowler starting, and it would never be Barmby and Sheringham. It was always Shearer as a front runner and Sheringham here. And one of the games, he even subbed them both off and brought Fowler and Barmby on. Are we seeing that wide now, where Southgate wants Saka as an in-behind winger and Foden in behind? So we'll never see Saka and Gordon, and we'll never see Palmer and Foden. Are we looking for that like natural thing in the front three?
I think maybe your answer, like I can't say for Gareth, but I will think yes, that's what he's looking for. But you know, I've been around in the game and watched some different. Maybe living in America and watching a little bit of League MX. I think you can coach different styles within a game. You know, I think we got a little bit caught up in like that's how I want us. And I think when he come out with a Calvin Phillips line about saying, "Well, we haven't got a replacement for him," your job as a coach is to get the best out of the. Can I just remind you, the best 26 players that you've just picked, you've left out, you know, Grealish. Okay, I think maybe you're right to do that. You've left out Maddison. I'm not sure. I think he could open the door. You know, you've picked this 26 knowing that you haven't got it. And again, I'll go back to what I said about Harry Maguire. If we're relying on Calvin Phillips to get us over the finishing line, everybody plays their part, but you want your Harry Kanes to be playing well, your Kyle Walker, your Foden, Saka, Gordon, Jude Bellingham. They're the ones that are going to win you a trophy. You know, everybody's a team, and I get all that, but your big players win you the trophies.
What blew my mind, Warren? Calvin Phillips played because Jordan Henderson was injured. He was plan B. So why can't Wharton and Mainu be that now? Like, how has he forgot that part of the history? Like, we didn't go that year playing Calvin Phillips at 8. Jordan Henderson was the 8 for a long, long time, and he got injured, and Phillips came in right at the tournament time. Like, this could be Wharton. This could be Mainu. Like, I really didn't like that comment.
Yeah. And again, Mainu, he's played, and I think a little bit with Gareth, which is unlike him. It's been put in, and I think he's a good player, but a lot of it is with the media, and he's thinking, I bet I've got 26, I may as well take him. Play him then. I think he's a hell of a player. But play Conor Gallagher, again, is not a compliment to Declan Rice, because one runs around everywhere and then one wants to play and pass a move, and Conor Gallagher, it's not his fault. And I think he's I think he's a good player. I think he's a good player. I don't say that he's not, but he's not got that little X factor you need when the other two have.
I've got one question. I've got one question on Conor Gallagher, who I agree with your take on. But if he went in a red shirt with Gallagherson on the back and played the same game, would we say he played well?
Yeah, because of the way they play. And
he's
maybe
very Danish, isn't he?
Yeah, their expectations are not as high. Like I said, when they played us, because of the Premier League and the history of the players, it was their final. You could tell by the fans and everything, they was really up for the game. And that's what England players, and Harry Kane's come out and said to Lineker and Shearer and all. We've had all this, when we had the golden generation of Beckham and Rooney, and I think that's a better 11. But Capello and Sven couldn't find that balance that we've had. I think man for man, you're talking about players. You can't tell me that Cole, Rio, John Terry, Gary Neville, Steven Gerrard, Lampard, Scholes, Owen, Rooney are not better players than the one we've got. Blimey, I mean, Harry Kane would probably be the only one, and Walker, because I think Walker's an all-round better player than Gary. But I still think Gary was a hell of a player. So it's not much of a drop down if there is a drop down. But we keep going, but it's going to be a tough game coming up for whatever team he puts out at the moment, because of how much pressure has started to mount up on everybody.
Yeah, so I just got one more question for you before we go on to the next game. The Danish goal, which obviously it's a worldie. You can't blame Pickford for me. But I feel like Gahey makes a bad decision. The throw-in that England give the ball away from with the bad decision by Kane, Gahey almost dips his head and drives into a 1v2. I feel like Harry Maguire would have been hammered if he'd have made that play. And that's put us in a situation where Kane's got the ball, tried a horrific lateral pass, I thought. Maybe Rice or Trent is slow to pass and the boys hit a worldie. Is that an error from Gahey, or am I being harsh?
No, I think you can always look at scenarios where I think ultimately, Stu, it's gone down to Harry. He's tried to hit a crossfield pass and he shanked it, and then we're all out of position. So yeah, you can look back 2 or 3 plays, and there's always a way that could he have done this, could he have done that, but it's sort of got away with it. You didn't expect Harry to do that. If anything, you're thinking he's going to hit it down their end of the field because he was under pressure, and he shanked it, and we're all out of position. And the kids had a great strike. I think Jordan Pickford was a little bit far on his line. I think he was back. Starting position, could he have been a couple of yards there? And as a keeper, that if you go up a little bit, it narrows the angle. But again, you can find faults on any goal, really, that you find. Even when Messi puts one in the back of the net, you can always find a fault somewhere along the line. But I think, like you said, it was a knock-on effect of a few different bad decisions. But I think ultimately Harry Kane, you don't expect him to lose a ball like that. And as I said, the guys hit a great strike, and then we're holding on in the last minutes to get a draw against Denmark.
So we got the triple sub, which I think almost guarantees you see changes for the next game. Owen Hargreaves on the American feed said, you do not bring Harry Kane off. I don't like that. For me, Kane's played 160 minutes and Watkins has played 20. That's absolutely fine. I don't believe you ever send the message that people are gods and superstars and can't be subbed. I truly believe that was an issue of the Hargreaves era, to be honest with you. So maybe that's what that's a product of. And I think it will have lit the locker room on fire, like, 3 subs, 4 subs, like Cole Palmer, I might get in next time. Alan Gordon, I might get in next time. To me, you can, people want Palmer and Foden in, so you didn't want 3 subs, but you want 5 subs. So you understand no one's ever going to be happy. But I do think that's a squad now that has an open mind to the fact that they might get into the game, which I think gives life to the training sessions. So here's my last question for you. We're playing Slovenia. The reality is we're probably through anyway. It's just a case of seeding. But you always want to win. What would your 11 be for the Slovenia game?
Well, I'm hearing, I'm over in Germany, there's only going to be one change. So that's what I'm
Wow,
hearing a lot. So I
that
know.
would
So
shock me.
that's, I know, it shocked me as well. I think the back, Walker will stay the same, and obviously Pickford. Not because I think there's if Luke Shaw's fit enough, which he has been training the last couple of days, I'd maybe test him in this game to give you a bit of natural balance. He's experienced enough. I would play Gordon. I'd throw Gordon on there. I'd have Rice, Jude Bellingham, and Foden just in front, so a little
I'd love to
triangle
see
there.
that. Yeah.
Kane, I'd stay where he was. And I might even give Saka a little bit of a rest because he was injured towards the end of the season. He's had a couple of games, and I'll put Palmer out there, which is a lot of changes. But I think we've got enough quality to get round. But as I said, that would be my system that I would try and go with. And if Palmer can't get out to that right hand side, and maybe let Foden slide out there a little bit and just give them a little bit of freedom. But we don't need Jude Bellingham is more than capable of playing a little bit deeper and pushing on. And if it does come a case, and Foden's maybe, he's Player of the Year, Foden. So I would play him as well, or Walton as well, just to give a bit of energy. I wouldn't go back to the same well that we've gone back twice and haven't looked any different.
I agree.
Stu, you've coached. I think subs should give you a problem for the next game. Gallagher's not giving me a problem for the next game because he didn't know enough. You look at, maybe someone up front that's come in, you think, yeah, he looked lively, looked sharp. I might think of him next time. Connor's gone in and done okay. He's run around, he's put his foot in, he's done a job, but he's not come in and thought, you know what, he's ready to the next game.
Yeah.
I think subs can either make it easy for you or make it difficult. And again, I don't think he's made it too difficult for Gareth to say, well, I'm not sure, but I think he'll start. I think Conor Gallagher, that's what I'm hearing, that he'll start. We'll start with what we had, and that'll be the only change for Trent.
You know why I don't like that? Our two higher profile friendlies, and I know you've got to go, so I'll make this the last point, but our two high profile friendlies were Belgium and Brazil. And Manu was good enough to start v Belgium, and I thought he was either England's best or second best player that day.
Yeah.
And it's like it never happened. To me, that's he's in there against De Bruyne. It's one of the toughest opponents. We trust him against Belgium, but we don't trust him against Slovenia. I was expecting to see Manu, maybe Warton. Yeah. I don't dislike Gallagher. I get the work ethic. I get it, and I do think he's played better than Trent. But that'd be disappointing if it's one change and it's that.
Yeah, and I think a little bit is down to who you're playing against. Serbia are very, very physical, demanding. Denmark, as we spoke about, so you might get a bit of a lighter game going forward. But can I just tell you, these are no fools, because I did their game. They're no fools. They played against Denmark. They was excellent. So their midfield three are a good midfield three, not world class, but they all complement each other. They're decent. I don't think they caused us any problems going forward. They've got limited with pace.
So just quickly, Warren, Andres Sporar played for Middlesbrough, so be careful.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need to say anymore. he played with the Borough, so there you go. If that's on your resume, that's never a good thing. But no, I mean, as I said, they're not a team. They're a team. They're a team. They're not a bunch of. There's not one individual like you think Malkovich, where he can maybe cause you a problem from a set piece and get his head onto it. They haven't really got that, but let's see how it goes.
All right. Warren, appreciate your time. Very, very valuable insight. Thanks for coming.
Pleasure.